Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another service from SABC Christchurch. We have an exciting service for you guys today. For today, we have several praise and worship songs, then followed by an inspiring message. After the message, we have a testimony on someone coming to know Jesus, so sit back and enjoy.
Your praise all night. new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground, so I yield to you into your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing, and all you have given me, Jesus, bring new wine out of me. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soul I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. You are breaking. You are breaking new ground. So I yield to you and to your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing, and all you have given me, Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Yeah, make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing, and all you have given me, Jesus, bring new wine out of me.
worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here,
Okay, we're going to do a Christmas story, but when I read, I have kids do actions with me. So we've got Tegan and we've got you. So there are certain words in this story that you're going to do an action to. And I can see all of you, so I can see if you're not doing it. Okay, the first word is God. This is, oh, no. Stand up. It's God. Okay, right. God. Okay, sit down. You're going to earn your lunch. Okay. The second word is Joseph. Okay, you can stay seated for that one. This is Joseph. There's a reason. Just wait. Okay. The third word is baby. Okay. It's pretend, Tegan. Okay. Yeah. It was a he. Okay. The other word we need is Jesus. No. Okay, I've forgotten a word. The word is angel. You might need to stand again.
That's a goose.
I can see the extroverts. Okay, are you ready? Yes. Yeah, you ready? Right. Are you ready? Yes. Okay, here we go. A really, really long time ago, long before toys, a time before everything, God made the world. A time long ago. And just like carpenters make stuff out of wood, God, just wait, made the world, and it was to make. He made all the plants, all the trees, he made animals, birds, he made you, and he made me. A time long ago, a time that was good, God walked beside humans through the trees and the woods. Now, just if you are under 7, there are trees on every page in this book. And it took me a minute to find one of them. Some are obvious and some are not. Okay, so, but the humans he made, like you and me, became nasty and mean, quite unfortunately. They'd thump and they'd punch and they wouldn't make amends. And so God and humans could no longer be friends. But to be friends again, God had a plan. One day he would send a very special young man. So it happened one day, or maybe in the night, an angel... Sorry, I'm just laughing at Declan. Came to Mary and gave her quite a fright. Don't be afraid, get scared or jump. God's going to give you a big belly bump. Your belly bump's a baby, and he will be the one. You shall call him Jesus. He is really God's son. Don't be afraid. Don't get uptight. Relax. Take a breather. It'll be all right. I'll bring good news. It's to Mecca. Honest, there'll be a baby born just as God promised. Now, inside Mary, a baby grew. And Joseph stared at the baby bump showing. A bit worried about how the baby got there, Joseph scratched his head and twizzled his hair. On top of that was another worry. They had to walk to Bethlehem in a bit of a hurry. But when Joseph was snoring, in his dream he had a visit. An angel said the baby was there by God's Spirit. There's a baby inside Mary, a tiny precious life. Don't be afraid, says the angel. Name him Jesus and take Mary as your wife. I'll bring good news. It's too meke, honest. There'll be a baby born just as God promised. Then Mary set off travelling with Joseph right beside. They walked and talked for miles and miles till Bethlehem arrived, with a baby inside Mary, who was going to be king. When the baby finally arrived, there was no room at the inn. Don't be afraid, don't get uptight, relax, take a breather. It'll be all right. So a place was found by a haystack and corn, and in this spot, a baby was born. So they stayed in the shed where the animals were fed, and the baby had straw instead of a bed. Then there were shepherds maybe cleaning their shoes, trying to scrape off the smelly sheep poos, till all of a sudden there was something weird. From absolutely nowhere, an angel appeared. Don't be afraid, that's what I say. Say hi to the baby in the manger of hay. Even weirder, from nowhere, loads of angels appear, and I mean loads. We'll bring good news. It's to make it honest. There'll be a baby born just as God promised. The sheep looked at the shepherds looked at the sheep. Don't be nosy, tiptoe please. Baby Jesus asleep. Next in the story were some wise blokes, maybe with big beards and a very long cloak. 3 wise men had travelled so far. They didn't use Google Maps. They followed a star. They rode up to King Herod and asked if they'd seen him. The boy, that is, the one who'll be king. Herod got his experts and asked where this would be. They said, he'll be born in Bethlehem. See? Please let us know when you find him. I'd like to just pop in and praise him. So the wise blokes found Jesus. Stand, it's Jesus. Right. They could call him sir, and they brought some gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Herod seemed nice, but was really mean. So the wise blokes they warned by a man in a dream. Don't be afraid. Hear what I say. Just don't visit Herod. Go home the other way. That way? That way. Yeah, that way. Then Herod searched high. Excuse me. Then Herod searched high and Herod searched low. Where is Jesus? He didn't know. With the help from an angel, they really did need it. So do some of you. The family escaped to hide in Egypt. Don't be afraid. Don't get uptight. Relax. Take a breather. It'll be all right. And when Herod was gone, they were no longer afraid. They travelled back home, and that's just where they stayed. The baby grew up from a boy to a man. He made stuff out of wood like a carpenter can. He did lots of cool stuff. He healed the sick, told great stories, and was amazing all the time. He also walked on water. Probably better than that. And even turned water into wine. Did you know there's good news? It's to make it honest, this baby grew up. Don't stop. To do what God promised. Remember that time long ago that was good when God walked with humans through the trees in the wood? When people were mean and wouldn't make amends, and when God and humans couldn't be friends? Well, it didn't end there because Jesus, the baby, and Jesus, the man, were the exact same Jesus in God's rescue plan. He lived, then he died on a cross made of wood. He died for you and me to turn our wrong into good. But something happened after Jesus died. Ready? This was worth a big high five. Because 3 days later, he came back to life. Jesus is really alive. So don't get scared or jumpy, and don't be afraid. Why? Because I'm with you always, says Jesus, not for a bit, but always. Right, till the end of age, and that's a really, really, really long time. Okay, so just like in the story of God and the world that all started all of those years ago, it still continues today, and we think that there's a place for everyone, including all of you, in it.
Thank you so much, Tanya and Teags. That's so good. Haven't we had a feast today? Oh my goodness, of all the different choices of things. I've got like 5 minutes, so it's all good. It's all good, because, I don't have very many words to get out. Ha ha. Wow. What a beautiful table that we have here that Robin's prepared for us. The banqueting table. I'd like to start with Song of Songs. And it says, "He brought me to his banqueting table, and his banner over me is love. For love waved as a protecting and comforting banner over my head when I was near him." That's from the Amplified Version. That's kind of my kind of Bible because it's got more words in it. Okay. For love waved as a protecting and comforting banner over my head when I was near him. And that is the whole thing about coming to a table that Jesus invites us to. There is room. There is always room. As Robin said, there is nothing that you have done or have not done or has been done to you that can separate you from the love of God, that can separate you from being invited to his table, to his banqueting table. In the book of Luke, interesting that that's a book that's been spoken out of a bit today, in chapter 14, there's this guy, Jesus is in with a whole bunch of people, and one of the guys in the crowd says this in chapter 14, "Someday, God's going to have a kingdom feast, and how happy and how privileged will be the ones that get to share in that joy." And Jesus' response was to tell what we call a parable. It's kind of like a story that actually is a picture of another story. And so you listen to the story and then you figure out what Jesus was actually trying to say within the story. So anyway, he told this parable. And he said, "There was a man in a town that invited many guests to come join him in a great feast that he was preparing." So he sent out the invitations, right? He sent them out that he was preparing. And when it was ready, he sent out his servants to let everyone know that it was ready. Like the table is ready. It's laid. It's ready. But one by one, his guests made excuses. And you could say they were good excuses. I mean, well-intentioned excuses. I mean, they were to do with working hard. they were getting on with their lives and they were working hard. They were gaining material possessions, and so they needed to look after them. They needed to look over them and make sure that they were doing okay. Or they were to do with relational issues. And it's right that you want to sort out your relational stuff, isn't it? I mean, that's a good excuse to not come. The thing is that all our good excuses were given priority over the invitation that had been given ages ago. It's not like they weren't prepared for this feast to actually being prepared for them. So, Jesus went on and said, this man turned and issued the invitation by his servant to all in the city. The poor, the blind, the disabled, the hurting, the lonely, even the beggars, the outcasts, and the homeless. And get this, at the end it says, and insist that they come and enjoy my feast. Insist that they come and enjoy my feast. All are welcome. The banqueting table that he had prepared obviously was laden. Like it could feed all those people in the city that had not necessarily been part of the original guest list. God invited and welcomed to the table, or the man, you could say, invited to the table the guests that he'd invited firstly. They are all welcome. But he also invited those that did not expect to be invited. They are welcome too. I could talk this morning on those that kind of like life got just too busy. Those other things got in place, got in front, and so they forgot. Or they were not necessarily forgot, but they just couldn't make the time when the feast was actually ready for them. But I'm not going to, because that's not what God's been nudging me on. See, this message has been brewing in my heart for about 3 years. Come on home. Welcome home. All are welcome at the table. My banqueting table is open to all. No restrictions. No restrictions. So for me, I don't want to get distracted. I want to come to the table. And God has been taking me deeper into this truth of His over the years, and especially this last year, where He's been layering it in, layering His truth in. And in one of our staff reflections time, He spoke to me out of Ephesians 3, which I will read just a bit later on in the service. But basically, it's that again, that there were no restrictions at the table. His table is inclusive, not exclusive. And there is room for me. There is room for you. There is room for all of us. And He has a place set for you personally, because He's invited you to the table. And He is waiting, and He is ready. I am one of His kids. I'm one of those that have said yes to Him being my Savior. So grateful for the cross and what He accomplished on that cross for me. I've said yes to Him being my King. I know that I am a part of His kingdom, that I'm not aligned with this world, but I'm aligned in His world. I have said yes to Him being Lord of my life, so that it's His way, not mine. I know what it is to kneel at the cross and say, I've tried my way, and I didn't do too good. I keep messing up. And I'm so grateful for the cross, for forgiveness, for grace, for redemption, for a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, a 70 times 77th chance from the Lord. And so many of us that are here are actually like that. You're like me. We've said yes. We've said yes to Him. We are his representation in the world of his self, of his kingdom, of the way that he does life, the atmosphere that is in heaven, and the ways that he loves to live. And one of the places that he says his banqueting table is here, when we gather together. When we gather together. John said it like this last week. Each week we get to go and have music like we're at a concert, and then we get to be inspired by a motivational talk on living well, loving well, and leading well. And as he was speaking last week, I was thinking, oh no, like he's saying all the points in my message that I'm going to give next week. We hadn't even talked with each other about it. My language for this is that each time we gather together in this space, we are offered a banquet like we have been today. A banquet. And we get to partake of each dish, whether we choose to or not. Whether that be the scripture, like what Paul read for us this morning, we get to partake in that. Or the songs and the words and meditating on the truths that are being sung and spoken and the melodies that have been put to them. Or whether it's the church news and it's catching up and reminding us that we're actually a part of a bigger family, that we've got stuff going on with each other that we can love and support each other in. Or whether it's the message, another dish full of truth, full of hope, pointing the way for which we can go. Or whether it's ministry that we're offered and we can come and we can find healing and we can find hope and we find ourselves smiling again because of how good God is. Each of those parts is an invitation to eat. So how do you, how do we come to the banqueting table? This is what God whispered in my ear. How do you come to the banqueting table, Sandra? How do you come? Well, I know that I don't want to be like that first lot of guests that were invited and just not turn up. Just let myself get distracted by so many things that are going on in my world and my life. I want to come to the table that he sets, that he prepares and makes for me. I guess these are the thoughts that I had that rushed through my mind as that question popped into my head. Do I come ready to engage with you, Lord? Or do I have distractions? Do I have restrictions? Do I have hesitations in my heart? Do I have hurt in my heart? Or judgment in my heart? Or pride in my heart? Or comparison? Or busyness? Or other gods in my heart? What am I letting distract me? I come into the room. I'm here. But do I sit at the table that has been prepared for me? Do I eat from the table then that has been prepared for me? Or do I go away hungry, leave this space, leave this place, feeling like nothing has changed because I've chosen to not eat that which has been placed before me? And I find myself moved to tears like, God, I'm so sorry. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to do that. I want to honor your cross. Like Robin said, God invites us to lay our burdens at the cross. Lay it all there with him and leave that there with him and come and eat at the table and enjoy what he has prepared for us. And then the second question is, how do I welcome all people at the table? I mean, I thought it was like enough first question. And then God moved on to the second question. How do I welcome all people to and at his table? You know, I have a friend here in church, and I have noticed that she deliberately goes and sits beside someone different every single week. So she's never sitting in the same seat. She has been intentional with this call to welcome all to the table. She knows that people can come in and not actually realize you're welcome at the table. You're welcome at the table. There's nothing that you have done or not done or that has been done to you that can separate you from the love of God. She understands and knows that, and she shows how to lean in and actually to eat from the table. And I love that. I get inspired by that. I get challenged by that. There are no restrictions in her world and her life. And I see others of you do this as well. And out in the cafe especially. And I guess I just want to say again, for those of us that take part in what we bring here on a Sunday morning when we gather together, I know for our team when we stand here, we are really intentional in our posture of how we prepare and what we seek God on to bring to you every single Sunday. And it is our heart each week that you would come and that you would taste and that you would see that the Lord is good. I know Paul would have sought God about what scripture to read that you could come and eat what he and the Lord have prepared, for it is good. Each message that is prepared is exactly the same. And no dish is ever the same each week. No dish is ever the same each week. No message is ever the same each week. No worship set is ever the same each week. Because someone different is preparing that dish with God. Come and taste and see that the Lord is good. That is our heart. That is our intention. And then John challenged us last week with, who do I make sure that is welcome at the table? Who do I make sure that is here? You know, I believe that I'm like the servant in the story. The man sent the servant out to invite the guests to let them know. Who am I letting know? Who am I making sure knows? Do I make sure that I'm including the blind and the lame and the weak and the broken? Or am I just going to the guests that I already knew were invited and encouraging them to come and to be here? John said last week to actually refine it down even further, down to asking God about 2 people that don't know that they're invited to the table yet. And asking God for opportunities and circumstances to look for conversations that can be had that would actually open people's eyes to knowing that God is good and God is kind and God is for them. And that whether that may be in your small groups, whether that might be going for a walk with people that don't yet know him, whether that might be at your gym, in the schoolyard. But asking God intentionally for 2 people to lay that on your heart, that you would be praying for them and looking and asking for God for those kinds of opportunities. You know, at my art class, John mentioned it last week, I endeavour to be intentional and looking for opportunities, looking for those little window moments where I feel like their heart is ready and their heart is open for me just to drop something in about God's goodness or a perspective that they might not have thought about with God there. God is good and God is kind. Who do I make sure is invited to the table? And over the season that we're walking into, I know that we're preparing tables. We're preparing lots of tables. But I just really want to make sure and remind you to be mindful of the table that you are invited to. You are part of the all are welcome, but that we actually lift our eyes and actually see the bigger picture of the all as well, that we are there. I love what God did when we'd just been talking about this whole banqueting table, and it just kept coming up, whether that was in our prayer meetings, whether it was in prophecies that were given, whether it was actually when we were going out and ministering to other people. A couple of weeks ago, God gave Carl a prophetic vision, and he saw us all sitting at the banqueting table, and we were hanging out and we were talking and we're laughing and we're eating, and our cups looked empty. And so Jesus came around with a jug to fill our cup. And Carl could see him starting to pour into someone's cup. And he's had that expression, say when? Say when? So you knew when the cup was, I've got enough in there, thanks Lord. That's enough. And that this person said, when? When? And Jesus just kept smiling and chatting and pouring, and then noticing that the cup's actually getting really, really full. And when? Stop. But Jesus just kept pouring and pouring. And Carl really, really felt that it was like God was saying, He will always give abundantly and extravagantly more as we sit at His table. And then I was reading Ephesians 3. Oh my goodness. Then you will be empowered to discover what every holy one, that's you and I, when we've said yes to Jesus, this is what He's saying is on offer to us. You will discover what every holy one experiences, the great magnitude of the astonishing love of Christ in all its dimensions. How deeply intimate and far-reaching is His love. How enduring and inclusive it is. Endless love beyond measurement that transcends our understanding. This extravagant love pours into you until you are filled to overflowing with the fullness of God. Never doubt God's mighty power to work in you and accomplish all of this. It's God's mighty power that accomplishes all of this. He will achieve more than your greatest request, your most unbelievable dream, and exceed your wildest imagination. He will outdo them all, for His miraculous power constantly energizes you. And when I read that, I just started crying. It was like, why would you not want to come to the table when that is on offer? Why would we not want to invite others to the table when that is available for them? To meet our amazing God, to come and sit and eat and feast. This is one arena, and there are others. Our small groups, our walking group, our biking group, our quiet times, our driving in the car listening to worship music. There are all sorts of places that God sets a banqueting table ready for us. But here, this is where He does something quite unique. And so I just want to call you to remember, as we're preparing our Christmas tables, as we are preparing our picnic rugs, as we are getting our barbecues ready, that there are no restrictions at His table. And in my heart, I really want that to be there. There are no restrictions at my table. Let's be ready to sit in the place that God has prepared for us, to welcome others and to include others, to eat the food that actually He has got there ready for us to be able to partake of, and to be intentional about whom we invite to the table. You know that God is for you, and He is with you. No weapon formed against you can prosper because of His great love. You are never alone. You are never alone. And I really wanted to finish our time by being family, because that's what this is when we gather together. He gathers us together as family. And those 3 points that I just been speaking through about coming to the table, being mindful of it. The second one, how do we welcome others and help others to lean into the table and make sure that they eat and that they drink? And the third one, whom are we inviting to the table? Whom else are we actually including and making it known that you are invited and you are welcome here? I'd love us to gather and pray together for each other over this season, asking God to keep taking that truth deeper and deeper into our hearts and our lives. So if you want to gather in 3s or 4s or clusters, however you want to, just to turn around and just be in a nice little hub so that everybody actually can get to speak and to pray together, that would be absolutely awesome. Because I think God is just, this whole service has been layered and prepared for you, all leading to this point. Taste and see that the Lord is good.
Hey guys, so John has asked me to share a bit about my testimony on how I became a Christian. I was not raised in a Christian family. I had no idea who God was. I had no idea what the Bible was, and I had no idea what it meant to be a Christian. But yeah, so when I was about 8 years old, my mum found this program called God's Warriors, which was kind of like a youth group, but for primary school age kids. And they ran the program at my primary school. And my mum, the first thought that she had was, oh my gosh, yes, I get to get rid of the girls for a whole afternoon. And so she sent me and my sisters there, and they ran the program once a week, I think. And so we were there every week, pretty much. Yeah, I loved it. Like, I loved hearing stories about God. I loved hearing stories about how God helped people get through difficult times. And yeah, it was such an amazing place to be in, especially because in primary school I was bullied quite a bit. And so being able to go to God's Warriors was incredible because I felt safe there and I felt loved and accepted for who I was. And yeah, it was just amazing. But sadly, that all had to come to an end because I did become too old to go. And so since leaving God's Warriors, I didn't really learn more about God, and so my faith kind of disappeared, and so did the memory of God's Warriors as well. But yeah, fast forward to high school, I just remember being bullied so much more than primary school. I was bullied I was bullied on my appearance, and like I was bullied on the way that I acted, and yeah, it was just a very tough time. I was a very insecure teenager. I hated the way I looked, I hated the way I felt, I hated my friends. Like my friends that I would hang out with every day, they would drink, they would smoke, they would do drugs, they would bunk classes all the time, and thankfully I never got involved with that stuff because I knew it was wrong, but I thought they were the only friends that I was worthy of having, and so I kind of just like sucked it up and just moved on with life. But yeah, I remember one night I just couldn't, I went through a really rough week, and I just remember wanting to give up, and I was crying so much that night, and I didn't want to continue with life because I felt like there was nothing else worthy to live for anymore. And so yeah, so I just wanted to end it there. But then the memory of God's Warriors popped into my mind, and it reminded me of like how happy I was back then, and how I was accepted for who I was, and how like hearing stories about God really like inspired me to be a better person. But yeah, so I just remember like, oh my goodness, I need to pray, like I need God right now. And so I prayed my whole heart out to God that night, and I just prayed that he would help me. And then I heard a voice tell me that I was loved, that I am worthy, and that I am important. And my whole body got chills, and I just remember feeling warm and happy and like at peace with myself. And I questioned it. I was like, is that truly God, or is that just myself thinking that? And I was like, no, it can't be God, because like I've never heard I don't know what God sounds like. And that was the first time that I actually heard God's voice. And so I was pretty skeptical about it. But anyway, so I kind of moved on from that. And then a few months later, I am now at Living Springs Kids Camp. It is my first camp, and I am really excited and really nervous. But I think it was the night before the campers arrived, I was hanging out with these two girls, and they're two Christian girls, and I remember becoming pretty close with them. And the night before the campers arrived, we were in the cabin together, and we were just talking. And then out of the blue, I just asked them, like, hey, can you tell me about your testimony? Can you tell me about God? And they just like started talking about what it's like to be a Christian and how God has helped them through their lives. And I just remember like that same feeling that I felt a few months ago, like of the warmth and the peace and the chills. It all came back, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is God. I heard God tell me that I am loved, that I am worthy, that I am an important person. And I told the girls, and they confirmed it as well, that that was God. And on that night, I gave my heart to the Lord, and I became a Christian. And ever since then, I've been following Jesus every day, and every day is a blessing because I have God, and I know that no matter what season I'm in, that I will always have God by my side. And yeah, it's just amazing. But yeah, so that is how I became a Christian. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Thanks so much for joining us today. And our prayer is that you have sensed God's presence with you, whether that be through the worship time, whether that be through the message or the personal story that got shared at the end, but that somehow your heart has resonated with it. And if you would like to let us know how you have been impacted, or you would just simply like to get to know us better, you can email us on office@sabc.org.nz, or you could go to our website www.sabc.org.nz, or find us on Instagram or Facebook and like our page or follow us, just to kind of keep in the loop of what we're up to here at SABC. Now, if you would like to find and join in a deeper way with us and would like to give to the ministry here at SABC, all the details of how you can follow through with that are going to be on the following slide. Once again, we've loved having you join with us. Haere rā whānau.